Good evening. I'd like to call the licensing board to order for March 2nd, 2020. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Tonight we have two items on the licensing board. The first item is the regular minutes of the February 17th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2 is the names of the operators' licenses, which is in our packet.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Being no further business before the licensing board, I adjourn. Take a couple things out of order tonight. I'll be calling the Common Council meeting for March 2nd, 2020 to order. Note that we have a quorum of aldermen with our newest alder person here, Megan Kennedy. Welcome, Megan. And we have 16 items on the agenda. The first item is the Police Department Citizen Appreciation Awards presentation. Presentation by Chief Moyler and Captain Tim Daring.
Good evening. Carmen, I'm going to apologize right now for messing up all the names tonight. I'm sorry, but Carmen Alvario and Maxwell Roy, if you're here, could you please step forward? Great. This is our 2019 Citizen Awards. Our first goes to Carmen and Maxwell. On January 24th, 2019 at 4:18 p.m., Carmen and Max were working at the Boys and Girls Club when a parent came in to pick up their child. Carmen knew something was wrong and observed that she believed the parent was intoxicated. She quickly informed her supervisor, Max, who called 911. Max described the vehicle, the driver, and the direction of travel to the police dispatcher. And based on this information, officers located the vehicle and arrested the driver for second offense OWI with a passenger under 16 in the car. Due to their quick thinking and willingness to get involved, the impaired driver was taken off the road before anyone was injured. We commend Carmen and Maxwell for their quick actions in helping keep our citizens safe. Nice job. Thank you. Matt Myram. Matt, are you here? On November 18th, 2019 at 4:45 p.m., Matt observed an adult male lying on the sidewalk on Barton Avenue at Roosevelt Drive. Matt stopped to check on the man and immediately recognized he was suffering from a medical emergency. Matt rolled the male onto his side and called 911. Matt stood by with the man until police arrived, police and rescue personnel arrived. Matt's observations, his assistance, his willingness to get involved in calling 911 ensured the man received the medical assistance he needed. Matt's commended for checking on the man, getting involved, and helping to ensure he did not sustain further injury. So thank you, Matt. Hope you're out there watching. Nick Garbish and Randall Hestekin? Yes. Yeah, please step forward. Did I get it right? Yes. All right. Good. This one's an amazing one. They're all amazing, but this one stood out. On January 14th, 2019 at 1:15 p.m., while working at Advanced Disposal, Nicholas and Randall observed a dumpster on fire against the north side of the Heartland Woodcraft, a neighboring business. The flames from the dumpster were hitting the building and looked to be setting it on fire. Nicholas called 911 as he entered Heartland Woodcraft to alert their employees to evacuate the building. At the same time, Randall used an Advanced Disposal truck to pull the fully engulfed dumpster away from the building. Nick and Randall's quick thinking and actions under pressure prevented injury to those inside the building and prevented extensive property damage to a neighboring business. Nick, Randall, we commend you for your quick actions in helping keep our citizens safe and saving a neighboring business from extensive damage. Nice job, boys. Madeline Sanko and Peyton Sanko. How'd I do on that name, girls? What is it? Cienko. It should be, sorry. Madeline and Peyton Cienko. On April 19th, 2019 at 8:36 a.m., our sisters, Madeline and Peyton, were driving westbound on Decorah Road, approaching the Highway 45 overpass, when they saw a woman hanging from the railing on the side of the bridge. The 20-year-old woman was attempting to jump from the bridge into the highway traffic below. Peyton and Madeline stopped their vehicle, approached the female, and helped her back over the railing, preventing her from this possible suicide. The sisters called police as they escorted the woman into their vehicle to wait for the officers. While waiting, the woman made suicidal statements and indicated she changed her mind and now wanted to jump off the bridge again. Peyton prevented her from leaving the car, and both Peyton and Madeline remained with the woman, comforted her, and waited until officers arrived. Officers arrived, took the woman into protective custody, and were able to get her help and services. We commend Peyton and Madeline for their quick actions and willingness to get involved. They clearly helped prevent a likely suicide. Very nicely done. Our next award goes to Nathan Bonifant. I know Nathan's not able to join us tonight because he is on military orders, so thank you for your service twice tonight, Nathan. On December 7th, 2019 at 11:28 p.m., Nathan was parked in the Walnut Street lot, observed a pickup truck back into another vehicle. Driver then immediately drove away, driving on the wrong side of the road. Nathan immediately notified an officer in the area and told him what happened. He was able to provide the officer with a vehicle description and direction of travel. Nathan's actions resulted in the officers being able to quickly locate the vehicle and arrest the driver for OWI and hit and run. Nathan's assistance ensured the driver was taken off the road before causing another crash or injuring any citizens. Commend Nathan for his quick actions in helping keep our citizens safe. Nice job, Nathan. Thank you for your service. Lance Crom. Lance? Hi, Lance, come on up. On June 12, 2019, at 8:20 p.m., Lance witnessed a motorcyclist skidding to a stop at the corner of Sylvan Way and Butternut. The operator of the motorcycle fell over while turning and slid over 20 feet before stopping, with the motorcycle pinning him down. When Lance tried to help, the man, who was injured and bleeding heavily from his face, refused. Lance was able to move the motorcycle off the injured man while another bystander called 911. The motorcyclist then tried to drive off. Lance, having observed that the man had been drinking, felt the need to act, as he felt he would likely injure himself or others if he continued to drive. Lance removed the key from the ignition and attempted to keep the motorcyclist on scene until officers arrived. Investigating officers arrested the man for operating while intoxicated. Lance's actions prevented the motorcyclist from injuring other motorists, citizens, or himself. Commend you, Lance, for your quick actions and willingness to get involved. Thank you very much. Alexandra Cholowa? Say it here.
Oliver.
Exactly how I said it, I think. All right, thank you. Thank you. On July 2nd, 2019 at 11 a.m., Alexandra went to Regner Park to pick up her grandchild, who was with classmates at Regner Park after their school day. While at the park, Alexandra saw a 6-year-old girl who had mistakenly not been picked up by her parents due to some confusion caused by an altered school schedule. Alexandra remained with the girl for about 45 minutes and called police when it became clear she was not going to be picked up. An officer was able to make contact with the girl's parents to arrange for her pickup. Alexandra is commended for being alert and caring enough to take the time to assist the police, ensuring the safety and well-being of that young girl. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Kevin Hall and Paul Frank. Kevin Hall, Paul Frank. Don't think they're joining us tonight. They're both cross-country team coaches for the Sun Prairie High School. On August 31st, 2019, at noon, the police and fire departments were dispatched to the West Bend High Schools for a report of a 16-year-old male East cross-country team member who had collapsed during a cross-country meet. Paul and Kevin, as I said, coaches for the Sun Prairie High School cross-country team, were told by a parent in the area that a runner was lying in the grass unresponsive. They immediately went to the area and determined the young man was not breathing and did not have a pulse. Paul and Kevin immediately started CPR and continued until the arrival of West Bend Fire paramedics. West Bend Fire provided life-saving measures, including several AED shocks, and transported the student to St. Joseph's Hospital. The student was later flown to Children's via Flight for Life and, thankfully, was released several days later and is in the process of making a full recovery. Paul and Kevin are commended for their quick actions, which clearly helped save the life of this 16-year-old student athlete. Nice job, Paul and Kevin. Melissa Ingram? Melissa Ingram. Great. On September 4th, 2019 at 1:07 a.m., Melissa called the police to report observing a female at the Quick Trip on Silverbrook Drive who, based on her actions, appeared to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Melissa observed the woman get into a vehicle and drive away. She immediately contacted the police, reported her observations, and provided a detailed description of the vehicle and direction of travel. Based on Melissa's information, officers were able to stop the vehicle, located drugs and drug paraphernalia, and determined the driver was indeed impaired. The driver was arrested for OWI drug-related, possession of cocaine, possession of drug paraphernalia, and was found to have several active warrants for her arrest. Due to Melissa's quick thinking and willingness to get involved, an impaired driver was taken off the road before anyone was injured. We commend Melissa for her quick actions, willingness to get involved, and helping keep West Bend safe. Thank you, Melissa. Richard Garrison. On January 16th, 2020 at 7:16 a.m., Richard observed a female in a wheelchair stuck in the snow in front of a vacant building. The temperature outside was 6 degrees with a wind chill of -5. Richard gave the woman a ride to Walmart where she was going to do some shopping. He then attempted to prepay for a cab ride back home for the female, however was unable to do this through the taxi company. Richard then came to the police department and requested the police department check on the woman to ensure she got home safely. Richard is commended for the concern he showed for a fellow citizen in need and the care and compassion he demonstrated to all of us. So thank you, Richard. Samantha Unger. Samantha Unger? Wonderful.
Samantha unfortunately was called into work at the last moment, so
Here as a proxy, I like it. Nice. And what's your name, young lady?
I'm Louise Unger.
Louise Unger, here for Samantha. I'm glad you could make it. On February 1st at 1:34 a.m., Samantha contacted the West Bend Police Department to report an erratic driver in the area of Jackson Drive and County Road PV. Samantha followed the vehicle as it entered the city of West Bend and provided a detailed description of the vehicle, the driver, and direction of travel. Based on Samantha's information, officers were able to locate, stop, and ultimately arrest the driver for operating while under the influence, second offense. Due to the information provided by Samantha, officers were able to respond quickly, investigate the complaint, and arrest the driver before they caused a crash or injured anyone. We commend Samantha for her quick actions in helping keep our citizens safe. Please let her know we're thankful. And our final Citizens Award goes, as it does every year, to a great group of citizens who are dedicated to serving and keeping our community safe. Our West Bend Police Department Crime Prevention Patrol. I'll step up, please. I'm glad to have a room full of people, and I know people at home watching, to make sure we brag a little bit about these folks. Every weekend in the summer, there's some type of special event. There's some type of parade, run, festival at the parks. These people are there every event to make sure it's safe and efficient for our citizens. Unpaid, over 1,000 hours or close to 1,000 hours of service this year and nearly every year for the last 30. I know I joined the chief in saying we're extremely proud of this group. So as I mentioned your name, please step forward. I'd like to recognize your hours of service. Brian Metz, 128 hours of service, volunteer service. Ruth Ann Ewert, 97 hours of volunteer service. Janet Ehlers, 85 hours. James Reinke, 84 hours. Gordy Cleaver, 71 hours. Steve Reinke, 62 hours. Jim Yurkovic, 56 hours. Jim Marsh, 44 hours. Greg Neiman, 51 hours. Tom Eilenfeld, 42 hours. Mike Wallner, 34 hours. Olivia Smith, 34 hours. Bill Eilenfeld, 17 hours. Hours devoted to our community, keeping it safe. That's a bit of a round of applause. Thank you, everyone.
Once again, thank you to all the citizens that received awards tonight. They just are prime examples of the people that we have living in the city of West Bend that care for the city, care for their fellow woman or man, and just can't say enough about them. Also, thank you to the Communication Patrol and the job they do for us every year. There would be a whole lot more overtime in the city if it wasn't for these people over here volunteering their time. So thank you all very much for what you do and for helping us out. Number 2 and number 3 are the oath of office for firefighter paramedic Timothy Marquardt and Graham Harrison.
Good evening. It's very exciting for us to be able to introduce to you tonight the two newest members of the West Bend Fire Department, two brand new firefighter paramedics. The first one is going to be TJ Marquardt. Timothy. Timothy grew up in Batavia, just up north from here. Went to Random Lake High School. This is his wife, Stephanie. They're expecting their first child March 27th, so we're excited that the fire department family not only grew by TJ, but it's going to grow a little more in March. TJ got his paramedic degrees from Lakeshore Technical College, and his fire classes also were from Lakeshore Technical College. We also thank him for his service. He served 6 years in the Air National Guard, which he was honorably discharged in 2015. Before coming to the city of West Bend, he worked for the Adel and Batavia Fire Departments, and he was a paramedic for Orange Cross. So we will begin with the oath of office first, and then Indian ceremony.
Raise your right hand. I, Timothy Marquardt,
I, Timothy Marquardt,
having been appointed
having been appointed
as firefighter paramedic
as firefighter paramedic
in the city of West Bend,
in the city of West Bend,
Washington County,
Washington County,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin.
and the Constitution of the United States,
And will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
You have to put it on there really fast, because now you're up, because the last two just left. Next up is firefighter paramedic Graham Harrison. Graham is a local boy, grew up in West Bend, graduated from West Bend East High School, so we're really excited to have a hometown boy stay here in West Bend. He's engaged to be married in October to Larissa, so we welcome her also to our fire department family. Graham went to Mid-State Technical College for his paramedic degree and Mid-State Technical College for his fire classes. Previously, he worked for Lifestar EMS and Grafton Fire Department. So we are excited that they will be joining us and we'll be ready to take the oath of office.
I, Graham Harrison,
I, Graham Harrison,
having been appointed
having been appointed
as firefighter paramedic
as firefighter paramedic
in the city of West Bend,
in the city of West Bend,
Washington County,
Washington County,
that swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the state of Wisconsin,
of the state of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of said office
of said office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief Kudik, and welcome to City of West Bend, Timothy and Graham. Item number 4 is the Kiwanis donation announcement. And Chris?
Thank you. I'll take off my alderman hat and I'll put on my Kiwanian hat. I'm Chris Jenkins. I'm proud to be president of the West Bend Early Risers Kiwanis for this year. Kiwanis is a global organization that has a local impact. The mission of our service club is to be an organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world one child at a time. We are made up of 30-some members from throughout our community. Regardless of status, affluence, career, age, religion, we come together for weekly meetings with the intent of creating a brotherhood and to help support children here in our community. We provide this support by fundraising through different events and opportunities throughout the year. We thank members of our community for attending our annual chili cook-off, our go-kart races, duck derby, and other events that we host throughout the year for these efforts. In turn, we use these funds to support organizations and causes that create memories in children's lives. For example, the Albrecht Free Dental Clinic. They provide smiles that create confidence that will last a lifetime. Operation Warm, providing coats for underprivileged kids in need. Or sponsoring the West Bend Library's Family Night, exposing children to a variety of different entertainment and ideas that they may not normally have had access to. Speaking of the library, the West Bend Early Risers Kiwanis is proud, in addition to our sponsorship in our community, to invest in what we call signature projects. These are projects that are larger investments beyond the normal scope of our annual budget cycles that create even more meaningful investments here in our community. And of course, they need to support our mission. After much discussion, information gathering, and decision making, the West Bend Early Risers Kiwanis organization are proud to support the joint West Bend Library, Parks and Recreation Center. We believe this new facility will continue to grow the programming opportunities for children here in our community and to help support our mission of improving the world one child at a time. As president of the West Bend Early Risers Kiwanis, I am excited to announce a foundational donation of $50,000. With this donation, we hope this will continue to spur support from throughout our community for this endeavor and have the city of West Bend further invest in the youth of our community as well. We'd invite everybody here to join our cause and become a Kiwanian. We meet Thursday mornings, bright and early at 7:15 a.m. at the top floor of the New Perspectives building. We give thanks to our city staff, library board, Parks and Rec Commission, and of course, my fellow Kiwanians for coming together in this joint effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Kiwanis Early Risers for that amazing donation. And we appreciate everything you do to help the children and the citizens of West Bend and throughout the county. With that, I will recess the Common Council meeting at this time.
Thank you, Steve. I would now like to call to order the Board of Public Works. We have 2 items on tonight's agenda. The first is the minutes from the regular meeting on February 17th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And oppose? Motion carries. Item number 2, developers agreement for Historic West Bend Theater Inc. with a presentation by, I believe, Ian.
So this is a developer's agreement that addresses several issues that need to be taken care of with regard to the Historic West Bend Theater. As I'm sure you're aware, there's the adjacent walkway which will be utilized by the theater for egress purposes. And so this addresses the use of that. It addresses access to it and emergency lighting and storage. It also addresses some electrical and stormwater improvements that are either within city right-of-way or within that walkway, and the responsibilities for those. And then last, it has some city obligations as far as the grant of easement that the city is allowing them to use that as an egress. So it's also an easement for them to use the walkway as an egress point. It does reserve to the city the ability to modify that walkway as we see fit in our sole discretion. I know that's something that's being discussed as we move forward with the Riverwalk West project, and that's something that we still retain the right to modify as we see fit. So, any questions?
All right, thanks, Ian. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And oppose? Motion carries. And with that being the last item before the board, I adjourn.
Thanks, Andrew. I'd like to call the March 2nd Finance Committee to order. We have 4 items on the agenda. Item number 1 is the minutes of the February 17th meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Item number 2 is a resolution accepting a donation from Dr. Ralph Olson with a presentation by Fire Chief Kudik. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. You have before you a resolution accepting a donation from Dr. Olson. If you recall, we do have a free smoke detector program with the City of West Bend Fire Department, sponsored through Red Cross, and also a donation. So anytime we get a donation for when we go out and install these detectors, we like to put it back into that account so that we can buy more smoke detectors with that. Along with the smoke detectors, we installed a carbon monoxide detector as well as a home safety fire inspection. So if anybody's in need of smoke detectors and can't afford them or can't do it themselves to replace them, make sure you give the fire department a call, and we do that for service for nothing. So that's a little plug, but this resolution is accepting the $50 donation and putting it back in that account.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Chief, just out of curiosity, how many of these do you install a year?
Oh boy, is Kenny still here? No, I'm out here by myself.
Ballpark.
We should have asked that question whenever he was here. I would say
sorry.
we probably do 10 to 12 of them, and each one of those is probably 5 to 6 smoke detectors. So I would say almost probably 60 to 100 smoke detectors a year we do.
Okay.
So it's an awesome program.
Great. Just curious.
Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries. Thank you to Dr. Ralph Olson. Item number 3 is a resolution for the City of West Bend to execute a master lease purchase agreement. Again, Fire Chief Kudik.
Yes, this one's a little more difficult. If you recall, during capital improvement projects, we deferred not purchasing a aerial truck device with capital projects money, but rather we decided to do the lease-to-own 10-year payment program. This basically is the second step of the credit application. We needed to fill out a credit application. The bank reviews that. And then this resolution says that the city is willing to enter into an agreement with the company, I think in this case it's PNC Bank, to purchase the funds or to enter into the agreement to purchase the truck and use the funds on a 10-year lease-to-own program. I will tell you that the lease is looking more upwards of 1.3 to 1.4 million. Originally, we had talked about 1.1. This does not accept that bid yet. All it does is say that we will borrow up to 1.4 million on this 10-year lease-to-own. The reason for the increase in the cost of the truck is that we had to go with the what's called the heavy-duty aerial platform as opposed to the light-duty. The heavy-duty one is obviously built better and will function better. However, the reason we had to go with it is because it's shorter It's not as tall, and we have a very significant height limitation at Station 1. This new apparatus will clear by about 3 inches, and that's as low as they can get it. So it was this or the other one and a new fire station, so we opted for the, unless you wanted to build a new firehouse.
Thanks, Chief. And I do want to make that clear. It is a lease to own, correct? At the
Correct.
end, we will.
Yes, it's a 10-year payment plan is what it is.
Okay. Any comments or questions for the chief? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion and a second. Any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chief. Item number 4 is award Q20-03, Planning and Design for Reconstruction of 7th Avenue. The presentation by Max Marshall, City Engineer. Good evening, Max.
Good evening, thank you. We'll come to you tonight with a recommendation to award a quote that we published in accordance with the city's purchasing policy. This quote is for the design of 7th Avenue. The plan is to design the road reconstruction this year and have the reconstruction happen actually next year. The selected consultant will prepare all the plans, specifications for the contracts, secure all the permits needed, and provide clarifications during the bidding process. We received 6 proposals for this request that we published, and they're listed on your memo. We rank the applicants based on their project understanding, the way they approach the project, the firm experience and reliability, the cost they submitted, the schedule, and the completeness of the proposal. After reviewing and ranking the proposals and based on those criteria, we would recommend awarding this quote to R.S. Smith for a total amount not to exceed $46,059. The first $43,059 are for all the design, and the additional $3,000 are in case they need to provide plan adjustment and clarifications during the bidding process or the construction. So basically, if the plans are in top shape and we don't have to do any changes, then we would only spend the $43,059. So we have an agreement that was drafted and that was reviewed by the city attorney, and we will recommend the committee and council award this contract to R.S. Smith.
Thanks, Max. In reading the agreement with R.A. Smith, I did notice that there was a meeting or a presentation at 60% and 90% of that design.
Yes, we typically ask them for that.
Okay. Given the visibility and the great interest in this project, would it be possible to have you do a presentation at the 60 and 90% mark to the Board of Public Works or Common Council? And
We'll definitely do that, yes.
Okay. Thanks.
And just another quick question, and maybe this is probably the wrong time to ask this, but are we planning any major changes to the design of 7th Avenue?
We don't know yet. They have to go out there and survey the area.
Okay,
and
too early.
based on that, we'll
Got it.
figure out what we need to do.
Sure. Thanks, Max.
Max, quick question. How the difference between the overall ranking of 1 and 6, is that substantial? Because I noticed that down at 4, we have somebody that's like half what everybody else is.
Yes, and it's a company that 2 things played against them a little bit is that they didn't show any experience in this particular type of project. They have done projects for private developments, but they haven't done any road reconstruction, at least in what they submitted to us in their proposal. The other thing is that they had a total of 215 hours of effort, whether survey, design, etc., where everybody else was at 400 and up of that, 450. So given the size of the project and that everybody else kind of agreed that the level of effort was probably double, if we were doubling their level of effort, we would probably double their price as well. And that was one of the things that we consider when we do those reviews.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, and that motion carries. Thanks a lot, Max.
Thank you.
Being no further business before the Finance Committee, I adjourn.
Thanks, Rich. I will again call the Common Council meeting of March 2nd, 2020 to order. Item number 5 is the special Common Council meeting minutes of February 17th, 2020 at 5 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have some corrections to the minutes.
Have a second, and then you can make any correction discussion.
We got a second.
Okay.
Any comments or corrections?
Yes, we show in the meeting minutes that Alderman Kennedy was, or Alderperson Kennedy was seated, and yet she doesn't reflect in any of the votes that were taken after she was seated.
Is that in the special one?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad, sorry.
Okay. If there's no other comments or question, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Item number 6, regular meeting minutes of the Common Council, February 17th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mark, are there any more comments or questions?
Somebody's made changes since
Yeah.
I pulled it up.
Oh, okay. We're good?
Never mind.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Items 7 through 11 are the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Item number 12 is a public hearing regarding the special assessments for 18th Avenue reconstruction between Vote Drive and Decorah Road. And a presentation by Max Marshall. Good evening, Max.
Good evening again. Thank you. Tonight, we had asked to have a public hearing set regarding the assessment proposed for the reconstruction of 18th Avenue between Vote Drive and Decorah Road. The Board of Public Works and Common Council adopted a preliminary resolution for levying the special assessment in May of 2018. And the next step in the process is to hold this public hearing to hear the input from the public and from the property owners that are concerned with this assessment, that special assessment. And after that, then the council would make a decision. We would recommend that after the public hearing, the council approve the final special assessment report and adopt the resolution levying the special assessment. In the past, when that happened, the city offered property owners to go on the payment plan if they wanted to. In the past, the city has used optional payment plans on over 5-year or 10-year with an interest rate of 1% above the city's borrowing rate, which is listed in your memo. And we would recommend that this time, again, the council would offer this option to the property owners as well.
Thank you, Max. Any questions for Max? Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to the public for any comments or questions. If you'd like to make a comment or question, I would ask that you would step up to the microphone. Please state your name and address, and if you could, please, so we can give everybody a chance to talk, keep your comments about 3 minutes if you could.
We'll try.
That's all we can ask, Brett.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Brett Berquist, and I live at 1602 Highland View Drive in the Westminster Place subdivision. I'm speaking tonight as a representative of a group of homeowners who feel that the action that is before you tonight is not being administered fairly in accordance with municipal ordinance and state statutes. Now, we understand that you had nothing to do with the way this situation started 16 years ago, but you have the legal authority to correct it tonight. Okay. I know that you have probably been briefed on such details as Wisconsin state statutes, in particularly State Statute 66.0703, which provides that a municipality may levy and collect special assessments upon which special benefits are conferred upon property owners. And State Statutes 263.45, which governs subdivision regulation and regional plans, along with subsequent court cases like Goodyear versus the City of Delavan, Hildebrand versus the Town of Menasha, and Genrich versus the City of Rice Lake. Municipal Code Chapters 8 and 18. These govern the special assessment procedures and the development of lands within the City of West Bend. Developers agreements. An agreement between the city and the developer which sets conditions the city wants the developer to accomplish prior to final approval of a plan for the development. Required by city ordinance, written by the city's development department, and approved by the city attorney. The 2010 and 2020 comprehensive plan for the City of West Bend. Special assessments in Wisconsin, a league handbook, lead manual, is written by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, revised in 1996, and reprinted in 2001. Remember those dates. The Town of West Bend, City of West Bend Boundary Agreement, Vision 2050 Regional Plan adopted by the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, the Washington County Bikeway and Trail Network Plan, and other associated documents. These documents are an important part of the planning process used in the city to plan developments in the City of West Bend. In 2001, the Westminster Place subdivision was just a vacant tract of land, sometimes used for farming, along a roadway known as South 18th Avenue, which was already showing up in land use documents of both the city and the county, with agencies that were responsible for land use planning. In 2002, the land was attached to the City of West Bend as part of the Town of West Bend, City of West Bend Boundary Agreement, at which time the city began to receive tax dollars based on the value of the property. In 2004, the Westminster Place subdivision began to take shape. Enter the developer's agreement. That is a key point in our objection to the city's plan to recoup funds for the reconstruction of South 18th Avenue. Since this time, new court cases have been decided which have an effect on the use of special assessments. This is evident in the condition statement placed on the state STP grant application that cautions municipalities that intend to use this clause to seek legal counsel. You'll hear this again shortly. Fast forward to today, 2020. The subdivision has been in place for about 16 years, consisting of about 65 to 70 affected homeowners, if you also include city-owned lots in the subdivision. We know that the homes built in the subdivision do not fall in the range of the median value for the City of West Bend. This is evident in the size of our homes, the materials required during construction, and other details outlined in covenants enforced upon the homeowners by the developer. Based on these details, the city assesses the value of the property and dictates the amount of taxes paid by the homeowner. I remind you that the city has enjoyed the benefits of this funding source. You can understand that a subdivision of 70 single-family homes would bring in more money than vacant land or farm field ever would. The city knew this based on some of the planning documents that I spoke about earlier, and especially given the fact that this area was listed as available and developable residential property. The city was finally able to bring about the reconstruction of 18th Avenue. Now, you and I both know that this was going to happen regardless if the subdivision was, or if the property was a cornfield or a residential subdivision. We understand that back in 2004, the developer's agreement, homeowners were advised of the city's desire to someday reconstruct 18th Avenue and to pass along some of the costs of the construction to the subdivision. Our objection is in the way that the city allowed this course of action to be used to the benefit of a few, the developers, and the city allowed this course of action. Okay. And the city as a whole as an expense of future homeowners like these people that you see here tonight. I thank you for your time, and I ask that you see this situation through the eyes of not just a valued city official trying to save the city money, but as a city resident, a homeowner, a constituent, and an equal investor in this ongoing project called the City of West Bend, and vote tonight to not approve this special assessment. I'll be followed by Steve Alice, okay, another resident of the subdivision, who will talk a little bit about the grant the city received covering 80% of the cost of the reconstruction.
I think we can do better than that. Come on, let's go. All right, I'm Steve Alice. As Brett mentioned, I live at 856 Abbey Road within the Westminster Place subdivision. And what I'm here to talk about this evening is that STEP grant. So as I read through this grant proposal that Max Marshall signed on July 21st, 2015, a few things stand out. 9,600 vehicles per day is what utilizes 18th Avenue. Our subdivision is 70 homes, 9,600 cars a day. Okay? I also want to call out some existing deficiencies in the road. So the first one, this is a minor arterial that has a rural cross section in an urban and urbanizing environment. I read that a couple times before I probably realized what it actually meant, right? And it's because we're becoming more urbanized that the road needs to be widened. So I'll agree with you that this one actually makes sense. What I'll disagree on is the fact that it's taken 16 years to do this. I moved into the subdivision in 2006 when 18th Avenue had a rural cross section. That road has had a rural cross-section ever since our subdivision's been there up until now. Our subdivision is not the reason why that needed to be made into an urbanizing environment or an urban roadway. All right, next. Technically, there was a 5-foot shoulder, but erosion had narrowed it significantly. Our subdivision had nothing to do with that. Next deficiency. The road is flat at the bottom and nearly 8.5% grade at the top. Again, if our subdivision or those that live on 18th Avenue were the reason for this, or if you wanted to make sure we were safe, why is it taking until 2019 to open the road? It should have been done immediately. And lastly, the last deficiency called out again, 9,600 vehicles per day. 9,600 vehicles a day. Other reasons to complete this project. Very few north-south arterial streets in West Bend. 18th Avenue is one of few that isn't curvilinear, right? There's no curves to 18th Avenue. The next closest road is County Highway G or South River Road, that's 2 miles to the east. 18th Avenue allows travel between the South Commercial Business Districts, Walmart, Home Depot, Menards, West Bend Mutual, West Bend Clinic. It serves as an alternative to US Highway 45. Pedestrians and bicycles don't have a safe area of travel. I would question whether or not adding a bike lane to 2 blocks of a road equals safe area of travel. Upgrading this road to an urban cross-section is financially difficult without grant funding. It says it right here in this proposal. All this is coming directly from it. This project scope includes widening of the road to 52 feet, installing curb and gutter, bike lanes, concrete sidewalk on each side of the street, an improved vertical alignment, improved streetlights, and improved drainage. Improvements will benefit the adjacent properties as well as the traveling public. I'll repeat that. Comes right out of this. Improvements will benefit the adjacent properties as well as traveling public. I would again question how much of it is the adjacent properties that are benefiting and how much of it is the traveling public. The remaining reasons called out in this grant request include quality water and retention pond, retaining wall, sanitary sewer, and width under Highway 45. Please consider who really benefits from 18th Avenue, the reconstruction of 18th Avenue. Is it those property owners that abut to 18th Avenue, or is it truly the general public? I'm going to call out one more item out of this grant request, and that's the program requirements. And I'm going to read this word for word directly out of it. Transportation construction projects using federal funds except sidewalks are likely general improvements that primarily benefit the public at large, for which special assessments cannot be levied under Wisconsin State Statute 66.0703. It's the same exact statute that Brett made mention of earlier. It's the same exact statute that you'll find called out in the special assessments in Wisconsin. This document right here was printed in 2001, 3 years prior to the developer's agreement. Based on that program requirements and the fact that general improvements primarily benefit the public, except for sidewalks, we'd be willing to negotiate. What we're asking is that you go back, sharpen your pencil, rework your numbers, and look at it just from a sidewalk standpoint. Lastly and finally, I'll repeat that number one more time. 9,600 cars a day. Not from the owners of the properties that abut the street, but from people going north and south through West Bend. Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak at the meeting. I'm actually going to hand it back over to Brett Berquist, who's going to talk about some of the perceived special benefits that we're receiving.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't noticed yet, there are quite a few people here. The subdivision group as a whole has decided to just choose a couple of speakers to make our points rather than having each and every one of these people step up here and speak. So that's why I'm back up here now, if you get the drift, okay? Any objections to that? No? Thank you. Special benefits. State statute spells out procedures that are required when a municipality proposes to use special assessments. This hearing, the process of notifications, and posting of reports are just an example of how the city recognizes these requirements. What escapes me is that the city decided to pick and choose the elements that support their position and to ignore those that support the people affected by this action. The city engineer has generated a required report detailing the benefits that he believes directly benefit the subdivision and justifies the use of special assessment. You should have a copy of it. It's Schedule D in the engineer's report. Let me comment on those benefits, which is a key point in our defense. Number one, curb and gutter and improved drainage of surface water result in an improved roadway and decreased maintenance. Westminster Place was designed following sewer pack recommendations of using reverse frontage lots that protect the roadway from residential uses and protects the capacity and the safety of the arterial system. Right out of their recommendations. The subdivision is designed with a water diversion easement that channels surface water through the subdivision and away from and separate of the surrounding roadways. New curb and gutter, along with improved drainage that results in better roadways and decreased costs for maintenance, benefits the entity who pays for it. Once the project was completed, the city became responsible for the care and upkeep of the system, not the subdivision. Number two, improved accommodations for other modes of transportation, pedestrian and bicycle access. The subdivision is designed with a system of sidewalks that provide safe pedestrian and bicycle access within the development. South 18th Avenue has been identified in several local planning documents as being part of a larger network of on-street bicycle and walking trails, of which the city of West Bend has been a party to and will benefit from. Number three, the availability of a wider road, which improves vehicle capacity. Improved vehicle capacity equals numbers. Okay. Since when does increased numbers equal a benefit to a residential subdivision where parents are worried about their children's safety when they're playing in their own yards? Okay. Based on the completed construction of the roadway itself, it's no wider than it was, okay, than the previous layout. Okay. The only area that has been increased is that for the bike lane, the curb and gutter area, parkway, sidewalk, and ditch improvements. Okay. Number four, improved emergency vehicle access. New roads don't improve or don't provide the benefit. Okay? Traffic conditions and location of calls dictate what route first responders take to access the subdivision, not a new road. Improve safety with street lighting. The street lighting, by nature of its name, only improves the safety of the roadway and those utilizing it, not the subdivision, which is separated from the roadway by use of berms and vegetation planting strips. Modern LED lighting is more focused, doesn't give off the ambient light of older sodium vapor lighting, and costs less to operate. All of these are benefits to the community as a whole, not just the subdivision. Number 6, acknowledgement of special benefits in the subdivision or in the developer's agreement for Westminster Place subdivision. How can this be an item that is considered a direct benefit of the subdivision? State statutes require that benefits have to be articulated and detailed, showing an uncommon advantage. Remember that definition, uncommon advantage accruing to the property owner. This is stated in the court case Genrich versus the City of Delavan. Given the fact that the city, in its drafting of the developer's agreement, felt the need to add this item to its list of benefits, clearly shows the belief at the time that it needed to have the developer waive future rights, while holding itself free of any such detail in committing to the reconstruction of 18th Avenue. An example exists in the wording in the developer's agreement, that actually says the city intends to reconstruct 18th Avenue at some future date. At some future date. Okay. Just another example of a city placing unreasonable conditions on a developer under fear of having the entire project denied. And without this developer's agreement, it is clear that based on the provisions outlined in the state statutes, okay, the uncommon advantage, the use of a special assessment to recoup costs of the reconstruction of 18th Avenue, as cautioned against in the grant application that Steve told you about, would not be authorized and definitely would not pass legal scrutiny. Hence this waiver statement. Plus, the clause is not part of the benefits reported to homeowners by the engineer website dated May 7th of 2018. Let me add some comments. In 2015, as part of the design process, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation prepared a traffic forecast report, which showed that in 2013, the average daily traffic count on 18th Avenue was 8,300 cars. Okay, 2013. South of Vote Drive was a little less at about 7,300. Okay. City counts varied, and Steve reports 9,600, which is what some reports show. Okay. These numbers show that more vehicles from the community utilize 18th Avenue than the residents of the subdivision. 18th Avenue is reported as a minor arterial roadway, thus making it eligible for the federal grant in the first place. Okay. The definition of an arterial road is, in itself, points to the fact that 18th Avenue benefits the general public. In fact, and I'll quote from the city's own 2020 land use plan, any street and highway system must have two important functions. One, moving people and goods efficiently and safely, and two, providing direct access to homes, businesses, and industries. These two functions are basically incompatible. Wow. Heavy volumes of fast through traffic cannot be moved efficiently or safely on a street that serves abutting land uses. That's the subdivision, okay? Through multiple points of access, all the different intersections that are in the project, okay? Arterial streets, a street carrying heavy volumes of fast-moving traffic is not attractive or safe for abutting residential uses. Okay, I'll continue. At least three functional classifications of street and highways should be recognized. One is arterial streets, two is collector streets, and three is land access streets. Arterial streets are those streets and highways intended primarily to serve the movement of traffic. To accomplish this, the arterials must form an integrated system providing needed transportation service between major sub-areas of urbanized development and through that urbanized area. Okay. Access to abutting properties may be a secondary function of some types of arterial streets and highways, but should always be subordinate, I'll say again, should always be subordinate to the primary function of expediting traffic movement. Collector and land access streets are sometimes referred to as local or minor or non-arterial streets. Collector streets are those streets and highways that are intended to serve as connections between the arterial street system and the land access system. Land access streets are those streets and highways which are intended to serve primarily as a means of accessing the abutting property, the subdivisions, the residential areas. Okay. Other cities have chosen to use special assessments to pay for improvements on land access streets, but West Bend chose not to do that in the case of 2 blocks of 8th Avenue, which benefited a small number of residents versus the entire community. How is that reasonable? Okay, I could go on, but I'm sure you get the point. The reconstruction of 18th Avenue is a project that benefits the community as a whole and is not an uncommon advantage to the homeowners of the Westminster Place subdivision and those people living on 18th Avenue and Vogt Drive. Okay. At this time, I'd like to yield to subdivision homeowners who would like to address you personally. There may be a small number that would like to do that personally, and then followed by Louis Santini, who will close our presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tim Riedel. I live at 861 Abbey Road in Westminster Subdivision. And I probably couldn't say, and articulate what Brett and Steve have done tonight. They did a great job. To me, it's very obvious that any kind of improvement in a road like that is to the benefit of the city itself. It just makes us all better, right? And so rather than belabor all the points that were made, there are times in life where you have the right to do something because there was a piece of paper signed, or it's the right thing to do. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not. In this case, they're clearly not, and I would ask that you guys do the right thing when it comes to making a decision. Thank you.
Hello all. I'm old, I'm slow, and I've got new glasses, so bear with me. One part of getting old. The other part, when you have to go to the lavatory, takes you 3 minutes to realize you put your shorts on backward that morning. It's happened to me twice, so. Anyway. My name's Harry Shaw, 873 Abbey Road. Gentlemen, gentlewomen, there's little I can add from the standpoint of fact that hasn't been stated most effectively by my neighbors, both tonight and at a previous meeting. Instead, I would like to examine the issue of the special assessment proposed for a subdivision through a different lens. I wish to examine 2 words and how they apply to the issue. The first word is integrity, one of the definitions of which, according to Merriam-Webster, is an unimpaired condition. An unimpaired condition. 2 examples. Website. It's hacked, it's an impaired. It's no longer an integral, and it no longer has integrity. Or a military code, once it's broken, it's compromised. The integrity is broken. The issue at hand is the integrity of the social contract between our local city government and we the governed. I feel that integrity to have been compromised when the developers group, one of whom Joe Altschafel, who is also a member of the city's 2020 Planning Commission, reached an agreement whereby the developers group agreed to pay for the 18th Avenue improvements by passing that responsibility on to future lot purchasers. While the developers, had they escrowed funds, which was another option, would have been released from that obligation after 10 years. No such relief was granted to lot purchasers. I firmly believe this was not an oversight. The second word is ethical, also a definition from Merriam-Webster, conforming to accepted standards of conduct. Conforming to accepted standards of conduct. This would mean, in my opinion, the city is expected to follow all state laws, regulations, statutes, etc. These are the accepted standards of conduct I believe the city must follow. To not do so would compromise the city's legal responsibilities. In closing, I would like to state that I find it incomprehensible that the city engineer actually believes the nonsense he has been trying to pass off, that the improvements to 18th Avenue are for our benefit and not for the city's. Thank you all for your time.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to take a minute of your time. My name is Bob Recker, and my wife and I own the property on 888 and 884 South 18th Avenue, so I'm speaking as an individual owner. I have a few comments, and I have a few questions. I guess I'd like to start out with this. I read an article in the news a while back, and it referred to this project, and it says the city shall have the right to impose special assessments. It doesn't say that the city must impose special assessments. We're being assessed $11,105.44 for a project that virtually adds no value at all to our property. What it does is it increases the speed of the traffic. It increases the volume of the traffic. It puts us in a position where we now have to be responsible for snow removal. For all of this, we get a bill for $11,000. This project benefits all of the taxpayers in the city of West Bend, especially the businesses located on the south side. So why isn't the cost distributed evenly among all of our taxpayers, not just the ones who happen to own this property that was selected to have an improvement done? I've viewed other projects in different municipalities and asked the questions of projects that are very similar to this one, where there were curb and gutter and sidewalk and road improvements with no special assessments. So why this one in particular? Are all road improvements in the city of West Bend financed by special assessments? If not, then why this one? So this $11,000 is an awful lot of money. It's about 5 or 6% of the value of our property. This money doesn't just fall out of the sky. We have to pay for this. And I don't think that it's fair. I don't think it's ethical. I don't think that it's right for the city to arbitrarily decide that they want to enforce this on the people who happen to own property in this area. I hope that you'll decide to levy this tax on all of the taxpayers evenly, because we all benefit from this. And thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Good evening. My name is John Peterson. I live at the northwest corner of 18th and Schlamer or Julin Circle, the first intersection south of Decorah. A few years ago, I received a notice that a few people would, I can't read it. A notice that few people wanted to hear. It was simply, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I attended the subsequent public meetings that we had here, and I raised my objections to the unnecessary and elaborate reconstruction of 18th Avenue. But I was told that the majority of the city needed this plan because it was for the greater good of the city, and I was outvoted. The entire city of West Bend would well benefit from the modernizing of 18th Avenue, while a hill was created in my yard to the point that I cannot mow the grass. I lost 5 trees and the majority of my garden, and the city graciously installed 160 feet of sidewalk, which is seldom used, but for which I'm required to shovel or pay a penalty. I've lived on that corner since 1989. I've dutifully paid my school taxes, supporting the public schools, even though my family has attended parochial schools since 1847. We've never used public schools, and I've not received any benefits from that, but it's required for the good of the city. If I have to pay the school tax from which I receive nothing, why should I be charged for a street which I may use a few times a week when, like has been said, 9,600 people use that, or cars use that per week? I don't get the benefit of 18th Avenue, and I don't think I should have to pay. For me, it was an assessment of $13,000, which is probably the largest other than the rescue house, the Women's Relief. Well, thank you for your time.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation. This presentation is going to be a little different from the ones you've heard. My name is Leigh Rosenheimer. I am currently on the board of directors of Friends Incorporated, and our executive director, Kate Nickel, was planning on being here this evening and unfortunately couldn't make it, so she asked me to add some comments on her behalf, and that's what I intend to do, and I'm going to add a few of my own comments too. So I'm going to keep my comments brief, but for the benefit of those that don't know much about Friends Incorporated, I just want to give you a quick overview. We have a few members of our police department here. I'm sure they know very well how Friends operates, and if any of you have any questions of the importance of Friends to this community, they'd be happy to fill in more information than I can provide. Friends is the sole provider of services for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in Washington County, not just West Bend, but for the entire county. They've been in existence for 42 years, so they haven't been around for a long time. And the relevance here is their shelter is located on South 18th Avenue, not in the subdivision that we heard about, but right on the 18th Avenue itself. It is a tax-exempt property. This is a non-for-profit agency, as you would imagine. So just a quick overview of the programming. They operate a 20-bed shelter, which is available to families and individuals who are experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault, in addition to human trafficking, which we hear about way too frequently. On average, we provide 7,000 bed nights to 100 individuals annually, and we're providing a safe shelter for those who need it, oftentimes right after the involvement with police with one of these incidents that have happened. This portion of the programming, the shelter and the transitional living, make up almost half of the annual budget of almost $480,000. The next area of programming is outreach services, which are provided at the 18th Avenue site, again at no cost to survivors. Advocates conduct 280 new intakes on an annual basis and provide services to 350 survivors. They certainly provide a great deal of legal advocacy for people that have been victimized through sexual assault and domestic violence. They provide a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis support line with trained staff. They take calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and on average receive about 1,200 calls per year. The budget for this portion of the program is almost $400,000. And the final branch is prevention education. Obviously, we're not just reactionary. We try to be proactive to these problems in our community. We provide education to all the school districts countywide, as well as the 3 Boys and Girls Clubs in the county. Last year, 2018 to 2019 school year, we provided 237 presentations to 7,846 individuals. So certainly we're talking about a very large program. This portion came to almost $92,000. And the reason I bring this up, because as the rest of the residents who are impacted by this, being a not-for-profit agency, we have an assessment of roughly a little over, or just under $15,000. That's a crippling amount to an agency that no longer receives support from Washington County. We do receive United Way support, other funding, state grants, but it's an agency that operates very thinly, and to be impacted by an assessment like that, again, is crippling. These are Kate's words now. I'm just going to close her comments with this. I am asking this committee to reconsider the allocation set for Friends Incorporated. It is currently just shy of $15,000, which is the biggest amount of all individuals affected by this special assessment. We are a nonprofit service agency. We provide all of our services at no cost to survivors and are directly supporting our community members. Additionally, we were cut out from the county budget in year 2017. We have continued to provide programming and even increased services to meet the needs of Washington County without the support of the county budget. These families and individuals are experiencing trauma in their homes and relationships. If we were not here to provide this service, survivors and community partners would not have local support and resources. Our budget is set based on grants, foundations, and donations. We do not have excess funds, and this bill could directly affect services. To relate the costs to our services, a $15,000 special assessment could mean a loss of 263 nights of shelter, a loss of 428 individual advocacy sessions, a loss of 441 prevention education lessons, or an average of 1.5 years of educational services, loss of 16 months of transitional living programming. This loss would be felt throughout the county, from law enforcement to our schools, to our neighbors. Thank you for your time and attention, and again, we ask that you reconsider the assessment costs for Friends Incorporated and the survivors we serve. So those are Kate's words. These are Lay's words now. Again, I've been on the board for 6 years. I've been a city resident for the past 26 years, a county resident for almost 60 years, 60. I have been involved in this organization for a reason. We have problems in our community, which we know exist. They're out there. We exist for that reason, to help the victims of these crimes. And there's a lot of smart people in this room. I know that. We've heard a lot of details from gentlemen preceding myself. Again, this is a substantial assessment. I mean, I think the end result, 18th Avenue is very nice now. But again, it's coming at a huge cost, which is being directed at a very limited number of people. And again, the community benefits from this improvement to 18th Avenue. And again, I appreciate your time and consideration, and know that this agency, again, relies on donations, grants, foundation support, etc. And an assessment like this is very damaging to this organization. So I hope you will consider that in your final decision. And thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Louis Santini. My wife and I live at 1620 Schlamer Drive here in West Bend in the Westminster Place subdivision. You've heard a lot tonight. To review, our arguments against the passage of this resolution are as follows. This is an arterial roadway joining northern and southern West Bend to the west. This is an arterial roadway used for the general public's benefit. The special benefits by 18th Avenue construction have been challenged loud and clear tonight. I think we'd all agree to that. These benefits benefit the general public, and some cases can be detrimental to the Westminster subdivision property owners. Not only not a benefit, but I think they can be detrimental. That's been illustrated here tonight as well. The city's 6 statement of benefits are, and I'm going to repeat them because what Brett brought up, I think, is just right to the core. Curb and gutter on 18th Avenue. Our subdivision was designed with water diversion easements. Let me repeat that. The subdivision was already designed with water diversion easements. So this is already in place with regard to diverting water. Number 2, helping other modes of transportation, pedestrians and bicycle access. This is the part of the larger city plan to benefit the public as a whole, not Westminster. Number 3, improve vehicle capacity with wider roads. Does anybody really believe that more traffic is a positive or a special benefit to Westminster? By the way, the road wasn't technically even widened. Number 4, improved emergency vehicle access. Quickest route dictates which way emergency vehicles go, not if the road is new. Number 5, improved safety lighting. The improved streetlights improve the safety of 18th Avenue, not Westminster. You see the theme here? Acknowledgement of special benefits in the developer's agreement for Westminster subdivision. That's the 6th benefit as to why Westminster is levied this assessment. The city is asking the developer to acknowledge that there would be a special benefit to Westminster. The city is asking the developer to acknowledge that there would be a special benefit to Westminster. We all know why this is in the agreement. Without the acknowledgement by the developer, the entire project may have been denied. There was no special assessment also on the recent 8th Avenue project, though the road was widened. Why no special assessment on 8th Avenue? We must emphasize again that the city is disregarding the federal grant process in levying the special assessment against our subdivision. A special assessment can't be levied outside of sidewalks. There's no sunset provision in this developer's agreement. Will this go on into perpetuity? There's nothing in the developer's agreement that says you can't continue to assess the Westminster subdivision for any improvements on South 18th Avenue. I didn't see the language in there. The developer's agreement states that the city may, not shall, levy a special assessment to Westminster. Together, we have the ability to change this and fix this. We ask respectfully that you vote no to this resolution, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
My name is Douglas Kiekafer, and I am not a resident of the affected area, but I've been a lifelong resident of West Bend, and my address is 626 South 8th Avenue. And growing up in West Bend all my life, I've traveled on 18th Avenue many, many times. And since I've heard of this, seen the reconstruction and heard of the assessment that's before these people, when I drive through this area, through the subdivision or just directly on 18th from Decorah, I can honestly say every time, it's just how my brain works. I drive on 18th, I think how ridiculous this type of assessment would be. Again, I mentioned I live on 8th Avenue. I'm not that portion of 8th Avenue that was recently reconstructed. I'm on a portion just south of Oak, and that was reconstructed in a major fashion about 20 years ago. And as I recall, We were assessed our portion of the expense replacing some of the sidewalks, and that was it. All I can say is the people here that are affected have been very well behaved. I'm extremely impressed. I'll tell you, if I had been living in that area, not just the subdivision, because there was that agreement, but they've got a good argument against it. If I were a member, like some of the fellas or the individuals who aren't in that subdivision and they're being assessed, or the nonprofit group that's being assessed, I don't mind telling you, I would be quite upset. My concern is, being from out of this area, is this setting a precedent where all of a sudden you might start doing this elsewhere? And I had no prepared comments. One thing that I think is very important is the fact that you've got all that traffic, 9,600 cars, is that per day? Is that right? Per day. That's a lot. Now, something tells me that you folks make up a very small part of that. And I'll tell you, as an outsider, but a tax-paying citizen of West Bend, I'd be more than happy to pay my fair share. And I will tell you, this guy right here is my son. He lives in the subdivision, but that has no bearing on how I feel. I feel exactly the same way that I would otherwise had he not lived there. David has sat in his house and he's told me how he can see cars that come into the subdivision. He's on Schlamer Drive and they just keep driving right on through the subdivision. Other people are benefiting. It was mentioned about Walmart, West Bend Mutual, Freightert. Individuals that are going to these establishments certainly are going to benefit from the road improvement, as I have. And I'll continue to think about it as I travel 18th many times, how ridiculous this assessment is. And dare I say, who'd ever go along with that should be ashamed of themselves.
If there's nobody else from the public who would wish to speak, I'd entertain a motion on closing the public hearing.
Motion moved to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries. Is there any comments or questions that any of the alderpersons have?
I have a question for Max, and another question for Ian. So I can start with Ian while Max winds his way up there. Is there not in the state statute that we are following one of the variants of the state statute as it exists now?
Correct.
But isn't there a provision in there to exempt tax exempt
No.
people?
So tax exemption, and it's very, I mean, the case goes back to the 1800s that states that special assessment, special charges are separate from tax exemption.
Okay. And my question, that
Yep.
answers that. Thank you, Ian. Max, my question for you is the special assessment is based on the cost of the sidewalks or is it based on the whole process, the whole project?
Well, there's a list of improvements that are listed that are as being qualifying for the assessment. That includes the sidewalk, the curb and gutter that was listed, stormwater management, and those are all listed in the report. So there's like specific items that qualify for the assessment based
Right.
on the city policy.
But that wouldn't be the roadway itself.
Yes, part of the roadway as well.
So it is based on the entire project cost.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you should clarify, Max, what part of the roadway is part of the special assessment and what part was paid by the city?
Well, the part that's in the assessment is the widening of the roadway. So we went from a 24 feet wide roadway and to a 32, and it's the additional 8 feet that are being assessed in the report.
I have a question for you too, Max. Were you done, Mark? Yeah. Okay. Like you alluded to originally, I can't remember. I think Brett was the first speaker. None of us was here when this was the developers agreement was first established. My question for you, Max, is how unusual, and this is maybe too general a question, maybe not really answerable, but how unusual is this particular type of special assessment?
Based on the developers agreement, are you asking?
Yeah. There's some. Go ahead.
I don't know how unusual it is.
Does the city get into this kind of developers agreement with major developers for these kind of neighborhoods a lot?
Mark, or I can answer that. I mean, there haven't been a ton of them lately, but any major subdivision has a developers agreement.
That includes this kind of special assessment?
Yeah, focusing on any improvements, whether it's the roads, the sidewalks, the stormwater, stormwater management ponds, et cetera. We get into this, and one point that was repeatedly made was that this is an arterial roadway. That's not necessarily a disqualifier. If you look at both Meyer and Fleet Farm, there were major improvements to arterial roadways that were paid for by the developer. Well, this wasn't paid for directly by the developer. The developer essentially made the decision to punt on it. And I mean, they could have paid for the entire cost of the reconstruction of 18th Avenue, but the developer made the choice on how to do that. They chose not to pay for the reconstruction of 18th Avenue at the time. And put it in the developer's agreement instead.
And is that just standard language, or could we say not offer the developer that option in the future, so we don't run into this?
Depends on how it is. I mean, policy varies over time. I can tell you, and I don't know that I can't pull out specific examples here. Some developers agreement require developers to put in sidewalk the second they start developing. Some it has to be installed piecemeal as the houses come online. I mean, it varies based on changes in planning staff, based on
but whatever the case, we
changes
could
in council makeup, based on changes in law over time. The law on how we can pay for it has changed, in the last 3 years as far as letter of credit or bond or deposits. I mean, it's kind of in constant flux.
Because it does feel, I'll be frank, it does feel unfair to me too. I don't know that there's a lot we can do about it right now, but I'm with you. Thank you, Max.
Steve?
John?
Question, Ian, then. I understand then from the developer's agreement is basically not following through his agreement with the city, is passing on to every one of these individuals here to make up his difference.
For the Westminster place, correct?
Yep.
I mean, it's very explicit in the developer's agreement. It's in there 3 places, that 18th Avenue improvements may be assessed. And the reason for that, I mean, reaching back into time and meetings that I don't even know if Mark was in at the time, the change in, while the volume maybe didn't change substantially, the nature of the traffic changes, just like when Fleet Farm went in, it didn't necessarily change the volume, but it changed and added turn lanes and the need for stoplights and other road improvements there. So.
Tough situation here, because if you give these, I feel sorry for each and every one of the residents. I really do. I mean, they're between a rock and a hard place because of one person, a developer, for not following through. If he would have put an escrow together, this would have never happened. They would have been the special assessment would have been all taken care of. If we relinquish and say, okay, we're not going to hold them accountable, what's going to prevent another developer coming in saying, okay, we'll take care of it, and all of a sudden at the last minute, it neglects from doing it, and we have no concept or right reason to get anything taken care of from there would be strictly the property owner then, correct?
Well, it would be the property owner or potentially placed entirely on the city, correct?
Yep, okay.
One question. That escrowed money, though, would have been returned, would it not have, because of the 10-year? So you have 10 years to spend the money.
Where's the
You didn't spend it. So had the developer given you the money in 2014, it would have been returned to the developer.
There was not escrowed money, though.
Had there been, so one of the
That was
options
one of his
was
choices.
to escrow money. So had the money been escrowed, and because because the improvement wasn't done in the first 10 years, the city would have returned that money to the developer. So that was one of the three options that the developers were given.
My guess is that the city would have done 18th Avenue with that money.
That's,
prior to it expiring.
Right,
But
exactly.
without grant funding to offset cost.
Right, that's exactly.
Ian, it's my understanding that the developer was the one that chose not to set up an escrow and tie up his money for whatever period of time. And he chose to put into the terms of the sales contracts for each of the homes that there would be this potential for an assessment.
Correct. It would have been the developer's choice which option to choose. So it wasn't the city forcing him to do the 10-year escrow. It was the developer's choice whether to redo 18th Avenue, to escrow money, or to say, whatever, I'll put it in the developer's agreement and the homeowners can pay when it's done.
Can I ask a question of the audience, since they seem to be interested?
Ian, could I just make one comment, please? As related to the developer's agreement?
The hearing is closed. I mean,
Sorry, Brett. What do you want to ask?
I would just like to ask how many people just completely were never advised. I mean, it's a buyer beware thing. You should know what's in your contract, but how many people did this come as a surprise to?
Well, it was a recorded document, so it should have shown a title. If it didn't, that would have been the title company like a title company defect. So
There's obviously quite a few that didn't know. Ian, do you have any other comments you want to make? Okay.
Approved by the city attorney. I got the signature.
Moving forward.
May I ask a question?
Sorry, the public hearing's closer. Item 13, final resolution levying special assessments for the reconstruction of 18th Avenue between Vote Drive and Decorah Road. I would look for a motion on the item.
Point of order.
Mark?
Can we table this? And we've gotten a lot of new information, and I'd like to suggest maybe tabling it until, are we forced to make a decision tonight, or can we table it till next meeting?
They're looking for a resolution, so we got to make some kind of decision. Yeah. Is that possible? to table it?
Resolution, tabling, a motion to table
That's
will
what I'm saying.
simply
Yeah,
delay
that's a
activity.
decision, yeah. Yeah.
If you want to make a motion to postpone it.
Motion to table until next meeting.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Are there any, excuse me, one question before the next meeting or to when?
Next meeting.
Next council meeting.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to
Drag it out
put this
further.
off
No, I understand.
for an interminable amount of time.
Understood. I have a motion, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight, and hopefully in 2 weeks we can do this again.
Believe me, I was in the same spot. Yeah, that next, the 21st. Or what the hell's the date today? Sorry, yeah, the 14th, or the 16th.
Okay, item number 14, a report by Alderman Jenkins regarding the library board meeting.
Sure, thank you. The typical monthly report wasn't finished yet, so you guys will be getting forwarded that when that's finished. But it was a pretty short and concise meeting. We talked about the city's getting bids on the new library Parks and Rec basement, so we're looking forward to that process. We approved the annual report. A nice tidbit from that is circulation did go up 2%. And then finally, we're slowly working on updating policies and procedures. The newest one we looked at was updating our language from pagers to cell phones. So exciting stuff.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Next item is a report by myself regarding the Parks and Rec Commission meeting. We met on the 27th of last week. Update on the Riverwalk West Side. They've submitted their Great Lakes grant. They're asking for about $300,000. We had a number of donations that we accepted. I'll read them all real quick. Sharon Rosbeck for Special Olympics, $50. Delta Defense for sponsorship for the Dirty Ninja Mud Run, $1,250. City Works sponsorship, 2020 Ninja Mud Run, $1,500. West Bend Mutual Company Charitable Fund for the Dirty Ninja Mud Run, $2,500. Shooting Star Travels sponsorship for the 2020 Movie in a Park Night, $400. Killian's sponsorship, 2020 Ninja Mud Run, $1,250. Bob's Main Street Towing for the Mud Run, $500. And Children's Hospital Wisconsin for the Mud Run, $1,250. And we also received a donation from West Bend Mutual Insurance Company Charitable Fund for Downtown Riverwalk in the amount of $500,000. The Kiwanis Shelter that is being constructed, that's been out for bids. That's going in by the fishing pond. Tree surety, that was an accepted bid for $39,000. Proposal for the All Abilities Playground is still going on. They're working on the designing of that. Most of the winter recreation projects have wrapped up. Again, the Dirty Ninja Mud Run, they've got 11 of the 13 sponsors returning, and they're hoping the other 2 will also return, and they're also looking for some extra sponsors. Their goal this year is 2,500 kids, up 500 from last year. Ice skating rink down at Regner Park was never able to open this year because of the crazy winter, but the Parks Department did some stuff, painting park signs, building new obstacles for the mud run, etc. And last thing is the deer abatement. As of the 27, we are up to 43 deer. Any questions from anybody? Item 16, entertain a motion to adjourn in the closed session pursuant to state statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub e, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting other specific business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Proposed development for the south parcel in TID number 12, parcel number 1119-1320-058.
Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Motion and second. Stephanie, can you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Butchlick?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier?
Aye.
Alderman Jenkins?
Aye.
Alderman Caston?
Aye.
Alderman Model?
Aye.
Alderperson Kennedy?
Aye.
Alderman?
Say Alderman, it's fine. Let's just stick with it.
That's just gonna get weird.
Motion carried. We are in closed session.
Okay, since this is the last item on the agenda, we will not be returning into open session again. Have a good night, everyone.